One of the most common middle-class habits that quietly sabotages long-term financial growth is prioritizing appearances over actual wealth. And while it may look harmless on the surface, it often creates deep, long-lasting financial strain. This behavior rarely comes from pure vanity. Instead, it is usually driven by social pressure, fear of judgment, and the deeply ingrained belief that looking successful is the same as being successful. Many people feel an unspoken obligation to maintain a certain image that aligns with their peer group. Wearing nice clothes, driving a newer car, upgrading phones frequently, eating out often, living in a respectable neighborhood, and keeping up with lifestyle expectations that signal progress. The problem is that appearances are expensive, and unlike real assets, they almost never produce returns. Rather than building net worth, this habit slowly drains income and locks individuals into a cycle of spending simply to maintain an image, making it harder each year to get ahead financially. A classic example is purchasing or leasing a car that stretches the budget because it symbolizes success and stability. While the car may look impressive, the monthly payment, insurance, fuel, repairs, and depreciation quietly consume money that could have been invested or saved. Housing decisions follow a similar pattern, choosing a larger home or a more expensive location not because it is necessary, but because it aligns with how one wants to be perceived. These choices are often justified as normal milestones of middle class life, yet they anchor people to high fixed expenses that limit flexibility, reduce savings capacity, and increase financial vulnerability when income changes or emergencies arise. Social media has dramatically intensified this habit by constantly exposing people to curated lifestyles filled with vacations, luxury purchases, stylish homes, and seemingly effortless success. What remains invisible is the debt, stress, and financial fragility behind many of those images. Credit cards, personal loans, buy, now pay, later plans, and long-term installments are frequently used to finance appearances, creating a lifestyle that looks impressive but rests on shaky financial ground. Over time, this leads to paycheck-to-paycheck living, rising anxiety, and minimal growth in net worth, even for households with decent incomes. Appearance-driven spending also delays or completely displaces investing, which is one of the most damaging long-term consequences. Money that could be compounding quietly through investments, businesses, skill development, or retirement accounts instead flows into depreciating items that offer only short-term satisfaction. These purchases may provide momentary confidence or social approval, but they rarely contribute to financial security or future freedom. Wealth, in contrast, grows silently and often looks unimpressive in its early stages. It requires patience, discipline, and a willingness to make choices that may appear boring, conservative, or even cheap to others. Breaking this habit requires a fundamental mindset shift, redefining success away from visible consumption and toward financial stability, control, and freedom. True wealth is not about what others see. It is about having options, resilience, and peace of mind. It is the ability to say no to jobs you dislike, to unexpected expenses that would otherwise cause panic, and to social pressure that dictates how you should spend your money. When you stop trying to look rich and start focusing on becoming financially resilient, your money begins to work for you instead of being used to impress others, and that shift, though quiet, can completely change your long-term financial trajectory. Another deeply ingrained middle-class habit that quietly limits long-term wealth is relying almost entirely on a single source of income, usually a full-time job, and while this approach is commonly viewed as the safest financial path, it often creates hidden vulnerability rather than true security. A stable salary feels comforting because it arrives on a predictable schedule, but that same predictability can foster dependency, where an entire financial life is built around one employer. If that income is interrupted through layoffs, illness, economic downturns, company restructuring, or even automation, the financial structure supporting the household can collapse with shocking speed. Many middle class families design their lifestyles under the assumption that their paycheck will always arrive on time and in full, aligning rent or mortgage payments, car loans, school fees, insurance, subscriptions, and everyday expenses precisely to that monthly income. This tight alignment leaves little margin for error and almost no buffer for emergencies, making financial stress nearly inevitable when something goes wrong. The deeper issue is that relying on a single income source places a hard ceiling on financial growth. Salaries tend to rise slowly and are often linked to time, tenure, or modest performance metrics rather than the actual value created. Even promotions usually come with incremental raises, not the kind of exponential income growth that builds real wealth. At the same time, living costs, especially housing, healthcare, education, and transportation, tend to rise faster than wages, creating a quiet squeeze where people work longer hours and take on more responsibility just to maintain the same standard of living. Over years or decades, this imbalance erodes purchasing power and delays wealth accumulation. In contrast, meaningful financial growth typically comes from having multiple income streams which spread risk and increase upside potential. This does not mean everyone needs to quit their job or start a business overnight, but it does require recognizing the danger of placing all financial hope in one paycheck. Side businesses, freelance works, dividend-paying investments, rental income, online services, and monetized skills can all provide additional layers of protection. Even a modest secondary income can reduce stress, improve cash flow, and accelerate saving and investing, creating momentum that a single salary often cannot. Another overlooked downside of single income dependence is the loss of bargaining power it creates. When your entire livelihood depends on one job, fear tends to guide decisions instead of strategy. People hesitate to negotiate pay, avoid setting boundaries, stay in toxic or unfulfilling work environments, and delay career changes because the financial risk feels too high. This fear-based dependence keeps individuals stuck, not only financially, but also professionally and mentally, limiting growth and long-term satisfaction. Shifting away from this habit does not require reckless leaps or abandoning stability. It begins with gradually building income diversity over time, learning a high-value skill, investing consistently, freelancing on the side, or turning existing knowledge into a service or product can slowly create alternative income channels. The objective is not to replace a primary job immediately, but to reach a point where losing it would not destroy one's entire financial life. True financial security does not come from a single paycheck, no matter how steady it appears, but from having options, flexibility, and multiple sources of income that work together to create resilience and long-term freedom. For many middle-class households, debt has become so normalized that it barely registers as a financial risk, blending seamlessly into everyday life through credit cards, personal loans, car financing, and installment plans that are often treated as standard tools rather than potential traps. And while debt can be useful in very specific, strategic situations, habitual reliance on it is one of the most powerful forces quietly holding people back from real financial progress. The core problem with normalized debt is that it redirects future income toward past consumption, limiting the ability to build wealth in the present and reducing flexibility over time. One of the most dangerous aspects of this habit is how invisible it feels on a monthly basis because payments are broken into seemingly manageable chunks that mask the true cost. a phone upgrade financed over 2 years, furniture bought on installments, a credit card balance carried forward with minimum payments. Each decision feels minor in isolation, yet together they create a heavy, ongoing financial burden. Interest compounds relentlessly in the background, working against the borrower and siphoning off money that could have been saved, invested, or used to create long-term stability. Normalized debt also creates a powerful illusion of affordability by shifting the central financial question from, can I actually afford this? To, can I manage the monthly payment? This subtle mental shift leads to lifestyle inflation without genuine financial improvement, allowing people to consume beyond their means while remaining stuck in the same economic position. Items that would otherwise require patience, saving, or sacrifice become instantly accessible, but the cost is delayed freedom and long-term opportunity. Over time, a significant portion of income becomes locked into servicing debt rather than building assets, which slows or completely stalls net worth growth. Psychologically, constant debt keeps people trapped in a state of financial survival rather than progress, where decisions are reactive instead of intentional, and every unexpected expense feels like a crisis. Emergencies trigger panic because there is no buffer, and opportunities, such as investing, changing careers, or starting a side income, feel too risky because there is no margin for error. Even when income rises, the benefits are often swallowed by existing debt obligations, with raises and bonuses going toward payments instead of improving quality of life or accelerating wealth building goals. This creates a frustrating cycle where people work harder and earn more yet feel no closer to financial freedom. Breaking this habit requires a fundamental reframing of how debt is viewed, shifting it from a lifestyle convenience to a liability that limits future choices. It means recognizing that every borrowed dollar comes with a cost beyond interest, reduced flexibility, increased stress, and delayed independence. Prioritizing debt reduction, avoiding unnecessary financing, and building emergency savings can dramatically alter a household's financial trajectory. When debt no longer consumes a large share of income, money becomes a tool for growth and opportunity rather than a constant reminder of past spending decisions, and that shift can open the door to stability, confidence, and long-term financial resilience. One of the most damaging yet subtle middle class habits is postponing investing until some undefined future moment. When income is higher, debt feels more manageable, or life finally seems stable. And while this delay often feels prudent and responsible, it quietly erodes long-term financial potential in ways that are difficult to see in the short term. Time is the single most powerful force in wealth building, and every year spent waiting is a year of lost compounding that can never be recovered. Many people believe investing is something you do once you are comfortable, once all the pieces of life are neatly in place, yet in reality investing is what gradually creates that comfort. Waiting for the perfect moment usually means missing the most valuable opportunities because even small, consistent investments made early can dramatically outperform much larger contributions made later. The true cost of delay is invisible at first, which is why it is so easy to rationalize nothing seems lost today, but decades down the line the gap becomes enormous. Fear plays a major role in this habit as well. Fear of losing money, fear of complexity, fear of making the wrong choice, or fear of repeating stories of market crashes and bad investments that circulate so widely. While these risks are real, avoiding investing entirely is also a risk, and one that almost guarantees financial stagnation. Inflation steadily erodes the value of money sitting idle, quietly reducing purchasing power year after year, meaning that doing nothing is not a neutral choice, but an active decision to fall behind. Delaying investing also reinforces a paycheck dependent mindset where income is tied exclusively to time and effort, keeping people locked in the cycle of working more just to maintain their standard of living. Without investments, money never gains the chance to work independently, making financial freedom feel distant, unrealistic, or reserved for others. Investing, even at a basic level, introduces leverage into personal finances, allowing money to generate returns without requiring constant labor and slowly reducing dependence on a single income source. Contrary to common belief, starting does not require expert knowledge, perfect timing, or large sums of money. What matters most is consistency, patience, and allowing time to do the heavy lifting. Learning the basics, investing regularly, and staying invested through market ups and downs can create exponential results over decades, while the habit of waiting creates pressure later in life, forcing people to invest larger amounts under tighter timelines and often take greater risks just to catch up. This late stage urgency increases stress and reduces flexibility, making mistakes more costly and recovery harder. Replacing procrastination with early action, even imperfect, uncomfortable action, is one of the most powerful shifts a middle class individual can make because investing is not about predicting markets or finding the perfect opportunity, but about committing to a process and giving time the chance to work in your favor quietly and relentlessly until financial stability and freedom become achievable realities rather than distant hopes.